Hi everybody, I'm Nico Rosberg, sustainability entrepreneur and co-founder of the GREENTECH Festival. So welcome to Meet My Green Plus One.
I could not choose between art or science. I believe in the STEAM movement, which is science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. I believe the intersection between arts and science is where the best products and inventions are created.
A little amount of energy is an amount of energy that is smaller than another amount.
Oh, come on. That was the scientist. Okay, so when you're looking for the greatest new idea, you go to a big techno party in New York, then,
yes,
what?
Exactly. I sit in the corner.
I have something as well. I'm also smartphone free, complete digital detox, because I just get addicted.
Newer festivals where you're almost celebrating green technologies, but exciting building technologies, really inspiring a whole new generation of people who realize that they can all make a difference.
I believe inspiring other people to have an impact can have a much wider web of differences made rather than investing in one sole product. But I also support Invest because I need investors for my own products.
Look at our world now. Look at what people are doing now. If we just continue like this, there probably won't be any world left for probably the end of my life.
Hi everybody, I'm Nico Rosberg, sustainability entrepreneur and co-founder of the GREENTECH Festival. So welcome to Meet My Green Plus One. It's our GREENTECH Festival interview format. And today I'm welcoming two super special guests. I'm welcoming Anne, who last year was our Rising Star Green Award winner. And we had our jury meeting earlier this year where we're electing this year's winners. And it was really amazing projects again. So I'm looking forward to the outcome of the winners in September, being announced at our Green Awards meeting then. And maybe you can give us a quick elevator pitch about yourself.
Yeah, for sure. My name is Anne Makosinski. I'm 22 years old from Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. I started inventing when I was really, really young, and I wasn't given many toys. So I would take my hot glue gun and garbage from around the house and piece together my very own inventions. And then from there, I started taking a lot of computers, printers apart, and I joined the local science fair when I was in grade 6. I did 10 science fairs total, all related to the area of alternative energy harvesting. And the main project I'm known for is the hollow flashlight, which is a flashlight that runs off the heat of the human hand, which I created for my friend in the Philippines who didn't have any electricity, so she couldn't see her notes at night, and she failed her grade. And I also created the e-drink, which is a coffee mug that harvests the excess heat of your hot drink and converts it into electricity. So eventually, if you drink a lot of coffee, you can give your phone a boost of energy. So the hollow flashlight, thermoelectricity, or something called Peltier tiles. It's basically a tile with two dissimilar metals inside of it, usually bismuth and telluride. So if my hand's the tile and I heat one side of the tile and I cool the other, I get a very small amount of electricity. And I run that through a circuit and it does generate enough power to light up a few LEDs.
That's such an awesome story already. And that's what also allowed you to get the award from us last year. And you're also Forbes 30 under 30 as a result. Congrats on that. That's really elite group to be a part of. And what you have in common with your Green Plus One person today is that you're also both winners of the Google Science Fair Award, which is super prestigious. And I think you were 2013. And your guest today is 2019?
Yes.
So which brings me to your guest. Anne, can you tell me who your guest is today and maybe why you've given us the pleasure of inviting him to the session today?
Yes. Well, my guest today is Fionn Ferreira. I'm sorry if I butchered your last name. I actually met Fionn when I went to the 2019 Google Science Fair this summer, and I was interviewing and doing some video work that I still have to edit at the Google Science Fair. And I saw Fionn and I was like, that is it! That's him! And his project is so amazing. It's also kind of in the green energy / sustainability space. I will destroy describing it, so I'm going to let Fionn do it. But he is such a wonderful, inspiring, bubbly, and very entertaining guy who loves to cook. And yeah, I'll let him tell you more about himself.
I just jump in quickly. I can definitely confirm all of what you said because Fionn literally ran our whole Green Awards jury meeting spontaneously this year in a phenomenal way. I mean, super entertaining. Everybody was buzzing afterwards. It was like, who is that English guy who was running the show? Like, it was spectacular. So Fionn, you were really helpful at our Green Awards meeting this year.
Well, thank you very much. And I'm happy to hear that. But I think the Green Awards meeting really isn't just run. I think it's so collaborative, and I think that's what made it so exciting. So I think we all got something really good out of that meeting.
So can you just take us through your invention just quickly so people can see also how amazing that is?
Yeah, so I'm Fionn Ferreira, and I also really enjoy building things, but what I also really love is the environment. I come from rural Ireland, West Cork in Ireland, and I really grew up kayaking, walking along the seashore, and just being outside. So I loved building inventions or different contraptions or doing experiments which would relate to the environment around me. So if it would be a machine to measure the vitamin C or antioxidant content of different foods or fruits, all the way to the invention that I guess I'm most known for, and that is a new method to remove microplastics from water. Microplastics are really, really small plastic particles, and these tiny plastic particles can have a whole load of negative impacts on us humans and wildlife as well. And they're really difficult to take out of water, and we can see a huge rise in efforts trying to remove them. I developed a method which uses a mixture of vegetable oil and magnetite powder. Now, don't be afraid. It's not too complicated chemistry. It's essentially rust powder, so like rusty iron, mixed with oil. Together it makes a magnetic liquid, and that magnetic liquid attracts and sticks to microplastics, making them magnetic, meaning that they can be removed from water, in a nutshell. I then made lots of fancy contraptions to measure how efficient that was, and now I'm just trying to make bigger fancy contraptions where it could actually be put into use.
Can you tell us, microplastic is a huge problem for our environment and for the whole food chain and everything. Can you tell us a little bit more about the situation out there in the world? I was swimming in the sea, fortunately as I am, I was swimming in the sea a couple of days ago with my wife, and we're like, hey, what if we took a sample of the water now here? Would we be finding microplastic? And if not, where is it the most problematic at the moment? Can you take us through a little bit?
Well, I think microplastics, so there are several sources. The biggest by far in the world is from tire dust. So when cars drive, the tires currently, the rubber, and that wears down, and those little rubber particles get into wastewater and into the sea. So of course in the sea you will find a lot of microplastics from that. But in addition to that, you'll also find microplastics at wastewater outlets, because the wastewater that comes from washing our hands and using various different cosmetics contains a lot of microplastics, as well as paints as well. So all of these microplastics ultimately end up in the water streams, and as we know, most of water ends up in the sea, if not all of the water. So therefore our seas are full of microplastics, but the place where it's really the biggest problem and where we can do something about it is where it's entering the sea, and that is the wastewater outlets, or where contaminated water is entering the sea.
I've also just heard of statistics whereby we ingest one credit card amount of microplastic into our bodies every single week, and nobody knows really how detrimental that is to our health long term. So that is still a big threat to us as a society as well.
Absolutely, and I think we have to remember that it's not just the plastic, but it's also what's in the plastic. And there's so many different molecules that you put into plastics to make them softer, to give them colors, and all of those have quite bad effects to your health as well. And the problem is there's just no research there, so we don't know what effect it's having at the moment.
Fionn, do you know what the main ways that, like Nico said, we are ingesting the plastics without knowing?
A lot of plastics come from shellfish, filter feeder things from the oceans, but also fish. But then in addition to that, also drinking water, because currently most drinking waters will have microplastics in them from their source and probably won't be filtered out.
You're telling me my drinking water has microplastic?
The one you bought? Yeah, most probably. I'm pretty sure it probably has microplastics.
So that's how bad it is.
Wow.
Well, of course, I'm just saying that from things that I've looked at and data that I've looked at. I am not guaranteeing that everybody's water has that, but I think it's most probably.
That's like one of the first use cases for your invention then, isn't it? Even to purify drinking water that ends up in our homes.
I think it could be used for purifying drinking water, put it into the purification line as well, yes. But I think that to stop it getting into drinking water, you also need to stop it getting into the sea. And you also have to remember that it's not just drinking water where we get it from, we also get it from plants that we eat and a lot of different things, because microplastics bioaccumulate, which means they get stuck inside various organisms.
Okay, so now we've seen the power of your invention. Maybe, Anne, if I would love to go back to you just quickly before we get into the super exciting part, if we can just have one more emotional connection maybe to your invention. Like, can you tell us a story of like one use case? You were telling how you were helping your friend in the Philippines. Can you tell us some other story recently where it's really changed the lives of some people somewhere in the world?
Right, yeah. So the flashlight that I made when I was in high school has been like an ongoing project for me for like the past 7 years, which is crazy. And I managed to get the patents for it in both US and Canada super recently, which was a big sigh of relief on my finalization of the project. But the main main thing that I get from a lot of moms and parents and kids is a lot of messages, and they've read about my story and they want to make their own flashlight or they want to get it somewhere. But obviously the parents don't necessarily have electronics experience, so they don't know how to do it. So I thought, what if I could make some sort of flashlight kit that little kids could play with and be inspired by to make their own toys just by using the resources around them, and just in a really not very forceful science kit way introduce green energy and alternative energy sources at a really young age. So since November 2018, I've been working on a line of children's toys that all run off of green energy, which I'm very, very excited about. I worked super, super hard on it. I've incorporated the flashlights technology using the heat of the hand. I've incorporated solar energy, kinetic energy, hydroelectricity into these little toys that young kids can play with, and I've written little stories to go along with them. So right now we're in the process. I just pitched to a couple toy companies during this quarantine over Zoom, which was a very weird experience, but I'm really, really excited. So they're kind of reviewing the technologies and seeing if they can make them right now. So it's kind of like a waiting game, but that's the main way that I initially see the flashlights making impact, because it is really hard for them to compete with battery run flashlights currently on the market, because the Peltier tiles efficiency is below 12% usually. So and I'm using a very small temperature differential to produce the electricity, so I'm not getting a lot of power out of them. So this is the main way that I kind of see it making an impact in the near-ish 1 year from now future if the toys get on the market, but I am super, super excited. And when I was in Switzerland giving a talk in February, I got to show a bunch of kids at some schools the toys, and they were just their eyes just lit up, and I hope I can give it away to more kids, and everything will be made with biodegradable, sustainable packaging, and so I've been researching that as well. It's been a really interesting process for me.
That's so nice to hear how you've made your purpose even greater than the impact of the product itself, and you're really trying to inspire and create a whole movement to inspire others to take on the same purpose that you have. So that's really, really awesome and special.
I think also you're really promoting that natural curiosity that I guess drove you to your inventions, and I think it's really nice to see that you're giving that to other people and promoting curiosity, and not saying here buy a flashlight, but more here you've got the materials to maybe build something, and not maybe just a flashlight but something else, and like that, figure something out for yourself.
Kids will play with a toy for a little bit and then they'll move on to the next one. So I'm trying to think of a way, if that is indeed the case, can I make all these toys sustainable, and then will it also just encourage them to work with their hands and assemble these toys in a way that's more fun and engaging than just looking at a screen and being entertained that way.
I can relate to that, because one of my biggest purposes is to try and inspire my kids as well, to live a life of service and spend a lot of time doing good, and it's not an easy one to instill that inspiration. If it's all right, I would love to now jump into the core of our talk. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to name two words, and then if you can both then choose one, first one then the other, and then elaborate why you've chosen that word. So quite simple, and I think you'll find the words that we've chosen quite interesting. Are you ready to go?
Yes.
Are you nervous?
A little bit.
Yeah.
I was just kidding. You don't have to be. So first of all, ladies first. So inspire or invest?
Difficult. I would personally, just from my experience, would choose inspire, just because I believe inspiring other people to have an impact can have a much wider web of differences made rather than investing in one sole product. But I also support invest, because I need investors for my own products for them to go far. So as a Canadian, I'm equally in both words.
So we've potentially got some investors listening. Where can they invest?
They could contact me if they want to get involved with a line of green energy children's toys. Yeah.
Okay, I will be one of them contacting you to look into that. With pleasure. Fionn, what about you? Inspire or invest?
Oh, well, I don't want to sound like a copycat here, but I also think that inspire can just have a much, much bigger effect than a bigger knock-on effect, because not only are you inspiring people who might need investors, but you're also inspiring investors. So your invest might be bigger all of a sudden. But in addition to that, I think that inspire will get younger generations involved straight away, even younger than invest will even take part in. And I think that it's really important to get it right from the bottom up, because particularly children have a creativity which I think anyway through schooling we're slowly losing. So I think it's quite good to harness ideas at a very young age, because every single little idea can have an impact with a bit of inspiration.
So let's deep dive. What was the greatest inspirational thing or action you've seen recently to support what you now just said?
Well, I think that a really big thing to inspire others is places where lots of people who are excited about science and excited about building things, creating things that come together. And I think that traditional science fairs are slowly coming out of fashion. It's a very serious competition, but I think newer festivals where you're almost celebrating green technologies, but exciting building technologies, maybe I guess a little bit like GreenTech, but also other festivals similar to Maker Fair and things like that, are really inspiring a whole new generation of people who realize that they can all make a difference just by tinkering and coming up with cool ideas.
I'll pay you afterwards. Is that okay? Yeah, we'll do the payment afterwards for the great advertisement. Okay, next one. So we've got art or science.
I have to say both. I could not choose between art or science. For me personally, I believe in the STEAM movement, which is science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. I believe the intersection between arts and science is where the best products and inventions are created. Steve Jobs has talked about this multiple times, and you can see quite successfully in his Apple products, there is the tech that makes it work so well in the iOS, but it also looks aesthetically pleasing. We expect technology now to be part of our fashion, instead of like a big clunky 1990s phone that like I never used because I was like a baby then. But yeah, I think art and science together, and if we can show how, you know, knowing how to design and draw can help design inventions and stuff like that, we can inspire a lot more girls especially, and boys, to enter science fields.
You gave the whole example. What in the sustainable ecosphere, what is a product where you would say, okay, this is, or technology where you say art and science has come together beautifully so far?
I mean, there's so many products out there that are sustainable that work really well. I don't know why the first thing that came to my mind is this clothing company called Pangea that has recently kind of taken off, and they make everything with recycled plastics and vegetables, and I'm totally like destroying whatever their company is. But that has been really inspiring for me to see, and their designs are really nice, and so many normal consumers, not just like consumers interested in sustainability, are purchasing their products. And I think that's really important, is to catch a larger audience.
Cool. Fionn, art or science?
Well, I think, again, it is something that needs to be brought together. You cannot have them separate, because ultimately science is not just old theories there, but science is also constantly new ideas and new theories coming in. That's why our researchers still have work. And those new ideas have just been from somebody who's creatively come up with an idea. We have to think that we've got a lot of problems on our planet now, and we'll probably always have problems to solve. And I think that without arts and without this completely not being afraid to fail, completely open-minded attitude, it's really, really difficult to make headway there. So I think that's where art comes in. I think science then comes in maybe bringing more of these crazy ideas together and building on those ideas. So I think we cannot dissociate them because they're linked together by definition.
But you're only supposed to choose one. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. So next one, if it's okay, we switch to Fionn going first this time. Digitalization or digital detox?
I think digital detox is good. So I only ever get really good ideas when I'm out like doing, so to speak, nothing. So like kayaking, like with no goal in mind, just kayaking around for a day. Or now here in the Netherlands, I go cycling. I think 2 days ago I did like something like 103 kilometers or something. I know I'm crazy. But I just think that letting your thought roam on a digital detox is one of the best things to make connections between ideas you had, which you never thought possible. I take the example here of my own project where I was playing with ferrofluids, kind of magnetic liquids, which are you buy as little kits, as toys. And then I also was building these things called spectrometers, basically to shine light through water and look at what comes out. And then I only really made that association while on a digital detox and not looking at my computer, studying, reading papers. No, I really need a bit of just emptiness from all of that to be able to think. So even now, every morning I will go for a long walk away from anything. I don't take my phone. And I think that's where I always get my best ideas.
That's really nice to hear, how your greatest power comes when you're connected with nature. And when I would call it also the state of flow, which is this peacefulness where you're able to really concentrate and where you're not disturbed. Because there's also been a study where it takes you up to 3 to 4 hours to get back into the state of flow when you're disturbed. And with a smartphone at your hand, you're literally constantly disturbed. So it's like never being in flow. And I think that's probably also comparable to what you're talking about. Really, that was really nice to hear and very powerful. And what about you?
I have to go the same with Fionn, digital detox. I mean, my experience was that I grew up without a smartphone completely until I was 18. I was allowed very limited time on TV and the computer, stuff like that, also while living with my parents. And now moving away from my parents, especially my first and second year of university, I had like an overabundance of technology and Netflix and the internet all the time. And it was really overwhelming for me. And again, I really couldn't clear my head and sit down to like work on ideas and inventions. And I find I always just need to have a notebook and a pen so I can draw and write things down at all times. times. I find it like, I don't know what it is, it just doesn't feel as satisfying writing on an iPad or drawing stuff for me personally. And a lot of my best ideas, the one thing that's different with me and Fionn is I do not indulge in physical activity. I live a very stagnant lifestyle, or I just stay inside most of the time. But my best ideas usually come when I'm like sitting in a class or like at a party or somewhere where I should be doing socializing or like paying attention, and then like my mind will drift off to ideas and I'll start writing them down, which is probably not great for anyone who brings me to a party. But that's actually the places where I get my best ideas, is when it's inappropriate to be working on something else. I don't know why that is, some sort of rebellion, but yeah, I definitely believe in digital detox, and I wish I indulged in it more.
Okay, so when you're looking for the greatest new idea, you go to a big techno party in New York, then?
Yes,
what?
exactly. I sit in the corner.
Okay, whatever floats everybody's boat, as long as you find your way. But look, I have something as well. I am aligned with you guys because I'm also smartphone free, complete digital detox, because I just get addicted. It really is unhealthy for me as well. So I've gone extreme. I need to go black or white, so I've gone extreme. Literally got rid of the smartphone. I don't have one anymore. I just have my laptop, which I'm using now, and the Nokia phone. Drives a lot of people nuts because I'm hard to get. Anyways, I think
I should do that. Is that a new smartphone?
It's the Nokia. It's the revival of the Nokia.
Oh, cool. I'm going to look into that. That looks really awesome.
It's very cheap and works great and does what I need. So just SMS and phone call.
Very cool.
And taking notes. Okay, next one. Fionn, you can go first again. Explore space or travel the world?
I think a very, very, very difficult question, particularly that I'm studying chemistry. So, of course, we always want to find new compounds all over this and explore space. But I think that actually exploring the Earth, for me anyway, is something slightly more important. Because, first of all, we've got a whole load of problems that we need to solve here on Earth. And second of all, I think that for me, I really love our environment here on Earth. And okay, it's cool to see space, but I think that the amount of investment in scientific effort and time that you're using on space travel is so huge. And if we'd invest that maybe in our own problems here, some new innovative ideas, and maybe exploring some of the wonders of our Earth, like we haven't explored so much, I think, first of all, that's closer. We can make a bigger impact. And I think we can learn a lot from a lot of other organisms here, a lot of other ecosystems, and we can learn things that they're doing. We can see so many scientific ideas like the lotus effect that come from plants and animals. And I think we can apply that in material science and in other aspects of science. And that's why I think exploring Earth is exciting and a good way to go forward.
And what about you? Explore space or travel the world?
I feel bad. I've been agreeing with Fionn on everything. Our views are quite similar. But I love space exploration, don't get me wrong, but I don't think, at least right now, that the solution is to like leave Earth and all our problems and issues we've created here. Even though I watched the takeoff a few days ago when it happened to space. It was very exciting. But yeah, the Earth is so fascinating and beautiful, and I personally have always had a really big interest in insects and wildlife. And recently I've been watching a lot of deep sea life videos. It's just so beautiful, and there's so many organisms underwater, underground, in the forest that we just haven't discovered. And I am such a big supporter of just exploration in general. And I think when we also explore the Earth in our own trips and journeys, we explore ourselves as well.
David Attenborough, exploring the world is one of the greatest.
For yourself, your inner landscape.
To a greater curiosity and also greater fulfillment for yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, I would love to see I'm really curious where the next 10, 20 years will be, where we will be just with preserving the Earth and being more conscious about it. Because we all have this ongoing discussion now about how we can be more eco-friendly with our lives and leave less footprint and all these things. But how are we actually going to implement a lot of these things in a regular way for everyone around the world would be, I think, a really big question. Yeah, because I know, like, here in New York, something very different for me coming from British Columbia and Canada is we have like a separate container for recycling and trash and compost, and we put all of those out and the garbage trucks come. And then over here, everyone just puts all their stuff in a bag and then like puts it on the road. And it was for like trucks to pick up. And there isn't as much of a division between recycling and garbage and compost especially. And so kind of implementing stuff in really big cities around America especially will be an interesting process.
Yeah, I just had a recent example in Monaco actually where my building as well implemented the division finally of the garbage. So we did the huge effort, and one day I was downstairs and I saw how they just put everything into the same garbage truck.
No!
It was just terrible because they don't even have the end system in place yet. So they tried to sort out the beginning of the process. Yeah. So it's still a long way to
long
go.
journey.
Yeah.
Maybe also I think that before we can really implement products that are biodegradable, particularly plastics, we really need to redesign the entire system. It's really interesting to see how that develops, and we can learn a lot from nature again. So exploring the earth, or traveling the earth, or whatever the word was. I think it was 2 words actually. So travel the world. That's 3 words.
Sorry, you're very right. I'm going to criticize my colleagues who have put this together. And I think I need to put in some new rules. You're not allowed to choose the same word, both of you. No, I'm just kidding. And please, we're on Travel the World, and you chose that as well. I've seen how you were inspired by your trips to the Arctic. Can you maybe touch on that?
Yeah, actually, I was just going to bring it up. So a couple of years ago, I was really, really lucky to be invited to go on this icebreaker ship that was sailing around the coast of Canada for Canada's 150th anniversary. So I joined for 2 weeks. I was so terrified. I was like, no internet. I don't know anyone on this ship. But I ended up sailing through the Northwest Passage, which was such an incredible experience. And we did stop every day at different islands and communities in the Arctic, and one of them had less than like 200, 100 people living in this community. And we were looking at this kind of historical site, and then I walked across the beach and I ran into this big garbage dump, basically, where they had just been disposing of their garbage, their recycling. I saw batteries, all these sort of plastics, and they had burnt everything on the beach. And it was really, I started crying in front of it. I was so moved because I had only seen pictures, of like trash floating in the ocean, whatever, and that does have an effect on you, yes, but seeing it in person to a different scale was very disturbing, and it really inspired me to kind of keep working on like, okay, how can I minimize in my own life the amount of plastics and waste I use, and how can my inventions also help potentially communities like this, but also just around the world, reduce the amount of waste that we produce, because that was just one tiny community in the Arctic. So thinking about that on a bigger scale all around the world and all these different communities was terrifying.
That's definitely something that I still want to do, a trip like that. I'm looking at the next opportunity. I was also in search of inspiration in the end, to make my drive to do good even stronger. I think it can be wonderful to see the actual striking impacts on the environment out there. Today I actually gave a project to make my whole house here solar powered now.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I want to look into that. I dropped it a couple of years ago because it was just unfortunately expensive in the country where I'm in Spain here. But now it must be cheap by now. So I'm going to look into doing that. Should be good. The next one is, and again, you go first, please. It's ocean or desert?
I mean, there's so many different contexts, ocean and desert, be taken in. But for me personally, I would choose, well, there's a lot of solar power that could be harnessed in the desert. Let me put that.
We've made it difficult for you.
Yeah, made it difficult. But in the ocean, I am just such a personal enthusiast on deep diving exploration and different organisms that live at very deep levels. And I recently discovered something called brine pools, which if you go to a certain depth in the ocean, there's a separate misty looking pool of very high salinity water that only certain organisms can live in and survive in. And sometimes eels, when they enter these brine pools, they die. They just come out twitching and they die. Anyways, I'm just very fascinated with deep water life, so I would do that. I would choose that.
Now I'm going to ask Fionn, in the meantime, can you get us a picture out of you diving? Into one of those brain...
No, I've never dived. That's the thing. I only watch videos.
Oh, you do? I thought you were diving
I don't have... I would love to, but I'm probably too out of shape to do it, but maybe one day in my life.
Oh, come on. That has to be done then if you have such a huge passion.
Yes, I know.
Yeah. All I can say, don't start in the Arctic. Maybe, somewhere way a bit warmer.
Yeah, somewhere more safer. Somewhere a little tropical.
Fionn, you? Ocean or desert?
Well, I really hate to be agreeing with what Anne says here, but just for the purposes of your thing. But I'm a chemist, and I'm an aspiring chemist. I'm studying chemistry, and I really love lots of chemical processes and looking at how the world works and looking at how plants can function and how so many different organisms can survive and the science behind them, and of course the science of working with nature. And almost all of that is to do with water, particularly in chemistry. So pretty much without water, you've got a very limited amount of biometabolism and bioreaction. Now, it's not to say that the desert is really exciting and we can learn a lot, but my personal passion is kayaking, seeing the environment, as you said, being in a flow state with the environment. And of course, my project is also ocean related. So I just have to choose ocean there.
Is there any other awesome, maybe related to water, then awesome thing you've learned or discovered just recently alongside your studies where you're like, holy moly, that is unbelievable?
Well, I still think, and I know this is an old fact, but I still think it's just incredible how much water we have on Earth, and how in my studies I just finished a biochemistry a course, and just how every single biometabolism reaction works with water. And if we look at other reactions, you've got organic chemistry with all these organic molecules, not water, but pretty much everything on our world is chemistry around one central element, which is water. And it's just incredible how we've got water here, and it's really limited on other planets. And it's incredible the amount of chemistry that is out there based on just this one molecule of two hydrogens and an oxygen.
Okay, but and in contrast to that, isn't it unbelievable as well how many societies are fighting against water scarcity and how that's becoming a global threat? At the same time, we have so much water, and yet societies have to face droughts.
Well, we have so much water in the wrong places, and we have so much water that is dirty or not drinkable or full of salt that we just can't drink as humans. So I think that's another fascinating aspect of the ocean, is just the whole water processing side and trying to make some water usable with having the smallest possible effect on the environment at the same time.
And come on, little invention to split the salt from the water from the ocean using tiny bit of energy.
Tiny bit, maybe. I think that's more Fionn's realm as well, though.
That's true.
A collab, an invention collab.
Yes, come on, kick it off.
I think we've got the engineer, and then I don't know.
And we've got the speed. I'm going to put the throttle down. We've got the speed as well.
Wonderful. And we've got Zoom, so that makes it all possible.
Exactly. No, but seriously, come on. Quick brainstorming in the next flow sessions that we all have. I'm not going to be able to contribute much to that brainstorming, unfortunately, but maybe the two of you, how to split salt with very low energy from water in an easy way. An E-cup. Put the salt water in, split.
Get fresh water out.
Okay. I can see I've got Fionn thinking a tiny bit. Is that true?
Well, I was trying to think in how many ways what you just said was not possible. No, I love thinking about concepts, so it's enjoyable to Gedankenexperimente.
Okay, old school or future forward? And you first.
I mean, personally, with my interests, which are very eclectic, I am interested in a lot of old school, old-fashioned things, but I would have to say future forward, because obviously that's the direction we want to go. We've seen in history what doesn't work, what is not right, and now we should be taking what we've learned and moving on into the future. But yeah, I think the future is going to be very exciting and also very terrifying. But yeah, a future forward.
You've ruined it for me. I was expecting you would go old school because I've read you love silent movies.
Oh, I mean, if you want me to do interests, I mean, I guess because last time I also was doing interests, but deep sea stuff. Interests, I would say old school, just because, I mean, I was raised on silent films from the 20s and then going on to the 30s and 40s. I'm a very, very big film nerd in general. And I'm sure my backup profession would be like a film professor lecturing at schools. But yes, I would say old school for that.
And you, Fionn?
Well, I think that there's a combination of both, because we really need to combine the old school thoughts, the old school knowledge, to be able to create a new knowledge. However, one thing is for certain, and we cannot continue just with old school, because look at our world now, look at what people are doing now. If we just continue like this, there probably won't be any world left for probably the end of my life, let alone that of any future generations. And I think that in addition to that, it's boring. I really like finding out new things. I really like reading about new things. And if it all just goes on old school, boring, it'll stagnate. And nobody likes a stagnant pond.
But please apologize. You've hurt Anne's feelings. Please say it.
No, I get where Fionn's coming from.
I'm really sorry
I'm sorry, Anne, for hurting your feelings, but I do think that a combination of old school and new is useful.
Okay, so we've come to the end then. Thank you so much for your time. I think it was really, really interesting. And please, in conclusion, Fionn, since we're also sending out a written piece to this talk we've had, give us your thoughts on why you think it's not possible to split the salt out from the water in a very low energy use case in the future, and where there might be an inkling of opportunity in the long-term future.
Well, actually, first of all, you say a very low amount of energy. And me being just studying computational chemistry here at the moment, just with this Zoom, I was actually on a different Zoom.
Which one was which mentally engaging? Was it the previous Zoom or this one now?
Oh, this one. Yeah, the previous one was 4.5 hours long of where there's more numbers. Well, actually, no numbers, just more letters, kind of abstract Greek letters, and very little English with it. But I think that, first of all, we need to define what a very little amount of energy is, because, of course, you could look at distillation or osmosis and things, but you say a little amount of energy. So on a grand scheme of things, well, a little amount of energy could be anything. So yes, it's most definitely possible to remove salt from water with a little amount of energy, if we don't know what a little amount of energy is.
Well, define it.
But I think define what a little amount of energy
Here's
is.
an amount.
A little amount of energy is an amount of energy that is smaller than another amount of energy.
Oh, come on. That was the scientist. Now come with the artist. Tell us what the artist would say.
To the converting salt water into fresh water.
Yes.
This is not my field, but I probably, as an artist, I could make you imagine that the salt water was fresh water if I used my art. I don't know. No, that's definitely something in the future that would be obviously really awesome, but I definitely think it would require a little more science to discover how we could do that.
I think maybe a 40-minute Zoom call might just be a little bit short.
Yeah. Or else you would have done it long ago, I'm sure.
Thank you so much to both of you, and keep inspiring the world with what you're doing. I'm inspired myself now just listening to you, so thanks a lot, and see you soon, hopefully.
Yeah. Thank you for having us. This was a lot of fun. I forgot what human interaction was like.
That's nice to hear. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.